You might have heard of Max Payne before because it's one of the biggest things to happen to PC gaming this year. On the PC side, people had been looking forward to Max Payne for years. It's been in development for almost half a decade, and for a long, long time people were seeing these amazing looking screenshots and hearing about how this game would combine the look and feel of movies like The Matrix and various John Woo Hong Kong action movies with really intense shooter gameplay. You know, when the game finally rolled around this summer, everyone was wondering whether it would live up to the hype, and indeed it did. It turned out to be one of the greatest shooters of the year on the PC side, and that's a place where the shooter market is really competitive. So the good news is the Xbox now gets a version of Max Payne for itself, and the better news is that it's a really great version of the game. It is everything the PC version was, more or less. By default, just becomes one of the greatest games that the Xbox has seen so far. You play as the title character throughout the game. He's this ex-New York cop who's been framed for the murder of his wife, the murder of his baby daughter, the murder of his best friend. He's caught at the scene of a crime. All kinds of horrible things are going wrong to him. All he knows is that he's got a gun in his hand, a whole bunch of goons in front of him, and he's looking for answers. It's a great excuse just to let you run around and shoot a bunch of thugs with a number of different weapons and through a number of kind of gritty New York environments. The game's story is actually a big part of Max Payne. It's surprisingly well done. It uses these kind of graphic novel style images to tell the story, and voice acting that seems hammy at first, but it's actually pretty engaging. The story plays a big part in the game, and it kind of reads like a cool pulp crime novel. It kind of keeps the context there and keeps you motivated to go on, as if a bunch of guys shooting at you isn't motivation enough. The entire course of Max Payne is just totally relentless. There are never any roadblocks. You're just always pushing forward. There's the only thing standing in between you and the next level are a whole bunch of guys, and you know how to get through that. The key innovation in Max Payne is what's called bullet time. He can fire his guns same as anyone else, but he's got this ability that makes the entire game slow down, all Matrix style or Hong Kong movie style. And the thing here is that you could still aim in real time. So using this technique, you can perform these big, like, kind of acrobatic leaps in the air and still draw a bead on like 3 or 4 different bad guys. And meanwhile, you'll see their bullets and shotgun pellets kind of whizzing right by your ear. It's this really cool effect. The sound all becomes muted, and you hear Max Payne's heart beating like as he's flying through the air, and it just never ceases to be impressive. It kind of seems like it's just this one trick that the game has to rely on over and over, but it's a really good trick, and it just stays a lot of fun. Part of that is due to the fact that the game plays great using the Xbox's controller. On the PC, the game uses kind of the standard mouse and keyboard setup that is used for pretty much every shooter. On the Xbox, it translates over to the gamepad really nicely. You use the left analog stick to move around and the right analog stick to aim, and the left shoulder button triggers bullet time and the right shoulder button shoots. I'm no huge fan of the Xbox controller, but this is the first time I thought it really worked perfectly. And in fact, holding it in your hand using the right trigger to shoot, it actually feels like you're squeezing off rounds of a gun. It almost feels like the game was designed to be played on this controller. Everyone harped on and on about how great the PC version of Max Payne looked, and the Xbox version pretty much looks just as good. So unless you have a high-end PC that costs more than $1,000, then you might as well see it on an Xbox, because it really loses nothing in translation. The textures are really crisp, and some of the most detailed that you'll see in any game. All the 3D models and architecture just looks great. The colors are realistic and well done, and so is the lighting. And yeah, of course, you get detail on down to seeing whether it's a bullet or a shotgun pellet flying past you in bullet time. It's really a detailed game, and you can't say enough about how good it looks. You just need to go and see it for yourself. The sound of the game is equally good. All the weapons sound like you'd probably expect them to, and the bad guys sound a little bit repetitive, but they're pretty funny, so it's no problem. And the voice acting it's kind of forced, but it's still entertaining. It's got a distinctive sound to it. Altogether, Max Payne is one of the best looking and best sounding games on the Xbox, and as mentioned, it really plays great too. Max Payne isn't the longest game in the world. It's between 10 and 15 hours. Granted, those 10 and 15 hours are some of the best you're likely to play this year, so it's easily more than worthwhile. There's some inherent replay value just in replaying the game from scratch, and also upon finishing it, you unlock harder difficulty levels, and also like a kind of a time attack mode where you need to keep killing bad guys in order to add precious seconds to the clock. But if you've heard that Max Payne is short, don't worry about it. It's more than worthwhile. The 10 to 15 hours it lasts, you're never stuck. You're just always going forward and seeing new stuff. It really doesn't feel like a short game. It feels like you've really gone through a lot by the time you finally reach the end. All said, Max Payne is easily one of the best games available for the Xbox so far. Is it better than Halo? That's up to you, but it's easily a run for Halo's money, and the fact that the Xbox already has two spectacular shooters for it is pretty, promises a lot for how the system will continue to grow.
They were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger, and then it was over.